tell you the facts. We never have an intention to build a port. We wanted to put a methanol plant in Lekki, and we need a very small jetty because our product needs a jetty to transport the product to different parts of the world. So President Obasanjo said to me, I'm going to announce here to have a deep sea port. You must try to put a deep sea port here. And we want to see this area to replace Dubai. I said, Your Excellency, I can't promise you, but I will do my best. He says, please apply for a deep sea port. That's how we applied. There was no intention.
We had a mandate, and that mandate was, you see this Lekki economic axis, this Lagos free zone, transform it into Dubai, United Arab Emirates. And in doing that, one of the critical aspects of making sure that happened was to have a deep sea port. This location was identified many years ago, as far back as 1978, as the area where Nigeria could get a deep sea port.
You know, President Obasanjo is a very stubborn man. We brought him to Singapore and he saw what Singapore is all about. And he said, why can't you build me a port in Nigeria? We said, no, we don't know how to do it. We have never experienced it, never done it. So what we went about doing was, in the first couple of years, is hire good consultants, hire advisory firms and technical firms and said, okay, what does it take to build a port, whether it's viable or not in Nigeria, and what does it take in terms of cost, financing, and we needed a ballpark to understand. Then we were told that, yes, it's viable, that Nigeria needs more ports. We took a journey on and said, okay, it is viable to build a port here. So that's how our journey started. We built a team of people that we thought were competent. I said, okay, you are the team now, do whatever it takes, let's build a port here. Not realizing that it's going to take so many years to build this port.
So we have to build a port. What do we do? How do we go about it? Harish is freaking out. Sergeant is confused, is thinking about the money involved in it. The technical guys are saying our area of expertise is consumer goods. This is a technical engineering thing that we have been called upon to build. Where do we go from here? We had a special gentleman, Srinivas. Srinivas went to China to work with China Harbour to develop the design for the port. But you can have a beautiful design, but you also need funding for the port. Where does the funding come from? It has to be money that comes at a good interest rate. And it was a lot of money, $1.2 billion to build a world-class port, the type that has never been seen before in Nigeria. Where do we go? How do we go about that?
So we put our money where our mouth was. We were able to get partners who felt the same way. We were able to generate the kind of belief and energy in the project that enabled construction to begin. Now, this meant that construction began while we didn't even finish all of everything to get to financial close with the lenders. But having done so, this piece enabled people to believe in the viability of this project. So what was happening in the interim from the time we signed the concession agreement? Well, once you have the concession agreement, the next big part of the puzzle is get money to fund this project. So we need to go and find lenders. So what we did was we hired financial consultants, Standard Chartered Bank. They then started pulling together possibly interested international financiers, both development funds and commercial banks. we got together a consortium of banks who said that we will probably be interested. So if you're probably interested, what it means is that they want to have a say. Before they lend money, they have to be happy with all the agreements and the drivers of the project, which means they want to be involved from day one to make sure all the agreements we sign are in keeping with terms they are prepared to live with and lend on. So we started with the consortium, set them up, and then we took the concession agreement to them. So one conversation started with them to find if they were happy with the concession agreement. Of course, nobody is. They were happy with many parts, but they had certain drivers they needed to change. So we had to go back to the government, and this was a big part of the puzzle. We had to persuade the government that certain concessions and changes and allowances needed to be made to make the project financially bankable. The key aspect of which was getting a guarantee from the federal government. That was the biggest piece of the puzzle that we had to solve. On the lender's part, we had to get them to understand that you need to understand how Nigeria works. You need to understand how federal government, state government works. You need to understand how the people actually doing the project are thinking and understanding these pieces. So you have to make certain concessions as well, because certain things which are drivers for them are walkaway points. So this sort of back and forth negotiation took quite a long time before we got the lenders comfortable and federal government got comfortable with concessions both had to make. Probably the biggest, I would say, achievement document-wise on this project, apart from actually getting the concession, was getting the federal government guarantee. It was the first guarantee the government issued in 10 years.
Raising the funds from the consortium of banks seemed almost an impossible task, but it had to be done. All the regulatory approvals seemed an impossible task, but it had to be done. We're talking years of documentation, process, regulatory interventions, discussing with different agencies, through changes in managing directors, changes in the ministers, changes in governors as well. But you had to keep the narrative going. You had to keep the confidence level high. You had to make sure that everybody was focused on bringing this port to life, a deep sea port that would change the fortunes of Nigeria.
Upon accepting this presidential challenge, the project became marred with a protracted mixture of frustration, hope, and red tape that spanned over 16 years.
Every week we were in Abuja. Nobody believed that this port could have happened, really. It was very, very, first of all, a very big project. Secondly, one that was going to be private. Eventually, we brought in the government and Lagos State, of course, to be party, because you can't have a port without having government and being involved, basically.
I spent maybe 10 years sitting in Abuja trying to get things sorted out. And I can tell you, there's no ease of business in Nigeria. You got to go out and get things done. If somebody tells you it's ease of business, there is none. We needed almost 40 permits to build this port. I have not seen it in any other country. That, not to mention that we did it with, I think, 6 presidents, 7 ministers of transport, maybe 7 MDs of NPA. So every time somebody came, a different song. And finally, when it came to wanting to get all the approvals done, we were told we needed to get federal government approval to build this port, which means the Minister of Transport had to take this to FEC, Federal Executive Council. And we were so taken aback. We said, someone is building a private port and you still have to go to FEC? Anyway, that's what I said. We had to spend so much time in Abuja, and the jubilating day came and FEC approved this.
It was first of its kind in Nigeria, where the private organization is trying to set up a huge infrastructure project, a greenfield project in the country. So there was no precedence to set up this kind of project?
It was a very difficult sell because the government felt that who are these people who have no background in building ports coming to do a private port here? So it was a very difficult sell.
It took 12 years to actualize this project, and I can tell you in this period, we must have worked with 3 to 4 presidents in Nigeria, about half a dozen of Minister of Finance and Minister of Transport, another 4 to 5 MDs of Nigerian Ports Authority, a couple of governors. And you can imagine it wouldn't have been easy for us. So what was happening? You take a project to the government, make a presentation, and then sell your concept, like this is the kind of project we are doing. So whenever there was a change in the guard, we have to go back to the person who's the new in charge of the relevant ministry, present the project to him, and bring him back to the speed.
In 2016, we reached a point where we were relooking at the entire project because of development within the Nigerian economy. And that's when I became the CEO for Lekki Port Project. We in fact had to go back to the drawing board and restart the work on the project at the end of 2016 because of the big changes in the economy of Nigeria and because of its negative impact on the entire port industry.
One of the challenges we had was if you actually take any port design, even from concept point of view, you require almost 25 years of weather data, and that was very difficult to actually get in Nigeria. We took the help from NIMOR, and also we took the help from Muritala Mohammed Airport to get some of the data that was available. Then we took the help of NPA, Nigerian Ports Authority, to actually get tide data and all that. But that was not sufficient for us to actually do the full understanding of the metocean data that we have to have before we start even the design of the port.
When we started this project, there was no concept of a PPP project in Nigeria because Nigeria had not seen any PPP project when we started working on this project. Later on, I think the Apex Expressway was done on that basis. It started after us and it finished ahead of us, but even that project got into trouble and problem. And this was the first PPP project in the port sector, and this is the only greenfield development which has happened in the country in the last 70 odd years, because all other port developments are simply extension of existing ports or redevelopment or refurbishing of existing ports, whereas there hasn't been any new port development like Lekki in the last 70 years. So since independence, no such project. So no rules, no regulations, all of that have to be designed, worked upon in collaboration with government agencies. And then because the project lasted for such a long period of time, we have seen at least 5 transport ministers, about 5 NPMDs, and you can imagine,
I think one thing we did very well was from the beginning, we carried every agency along. So they were here from the beginning, from where the idea of the port was conceived, and they've always been part of us. So yes, things didn't really go very smoothly, but again, with constant engagement, alignment, we've been able to get to this stage.
There was a concession agreement for the project, and Appendix 8 of that concession agreement essentially listed out all the regulatory approvals, permits, consents, licenses, name it, that the Lekki Deep Sea Port needed before it could become operational. In that document were 38 approvals that needed to be obtained before the concession agreement will become valid. It was a huge challenge because you are talking different sectors, different components, different agencies. Some of these permits had never been issued before to anyone. They were there on the books, but there were no guidelines. There were no applicable fees that had been devised for them. So you had to take each and every one of them, write to the agency, figure out the agency first of all, write to the agency and ask the agency, this is Lekki Port, this is what we plan to do, and we need to get this permit. This is what I understand from your website and the documentation we require. Many times they want to come and visit to see what it is that you are doing and the requirements for the permits. It was the most challenging part for us at that time because you couldn't even say to yourself, I can do this within 5 months. Because in a lot of cases, it will take you 5 months for that agency to develop its scale of fees, for instance. There were some permits that were clearly not applicable to the port. And you go to the agency and say, I don't need this. For instance, there were some licenses for noise. There's no noise. We have not started construction. And the kind of construction that we are doing is not the type that is envisaged under this agreement. But once you come to them and you say, I think I need this license, you are going to pay for that license. They will not let you go. You will pay for that license. In some cases, for instance, dredging, we required 4 permits from 4 different agencies. The same place to be dredged, 4 different. 4 at the same time. And every year, you had to renew it. You had to renew it, you had to pay. The cost was incredible. The effort involved in dealing with it was something else. But it needed to be done because it gave comfort to the foreign investors that you were fully compliant with all the laws of the land. In hindsight, eventually, some of the supervising ministries, agencies, for instance, ICRC, started to ask us, do you really need this permit? They started putting all these things together to ensure that after us, anybody that wants to come and do something like this does not have to go through this trauma. So, we are sort of the forerunners of the ease of doing business in Nigeria.
There are a lot of turbulence to get through because every government came into power. They want to see how you are going to build port.
There was a need for the Buhari government to commence with it and complete with it.
We have a lot of difficulties to reach where we are, but finally they are there, and I'm very proud of it.
I mean, for us to unlock value in the free trade zone, there has to be a port.
We have to actually ratify that by a model studies. That means we create a replica of the entire port in a scaled dimension, and then we actually impact the particular structure with the wave patterns that we have, design wave, design current, design speed, and all that, and then see what is the damage that can happen to the port structure, right? And then after that, make modifications to the design to ensure that the design life, throughout the design life of 100 years, the port will sustain. So any design storm, any design hurricane that we will have in that particular area, it will actually, the port structures will have to withstand that particular severity of the environmental forces. So these are all some of the things that we had to do. And once we actually come to that particular conclusion that this is the right orientation of the entire port, and also one of the things which we have to understand is we cannot allow penetration of the wave into the port. So that's why the breakwaters are created in such a fashion, and the orientation of the breakwaters is such that it doesn't actually spoil the tranquility in the port basin. That is very important for anybody, any port design to be actually perfectly all right. Because when the ships berth there, they should be actually in a safe zone. They cannot actually be impacted by the waves that are outside. So for that particular reason, we had to maintain the tranquility of the waters in the basin, and also we have to actually see what is the largest vessel that we want to bring here. That determines the entrance, the turning basin, everything, and also the berth length. Everything will be actually managed dependent on the design vessel. So these are all we have to do, and then subsequently after the building of the port, how best to actually take the vessel into the port, we have to do a simulation study. Ship simulation study we do, and once we do that, then we know how much time it takes for the vessel to be berthed and how quickly you can actually increase the operations, how you can make the port efficient from point of view of operations, and how you can actually discharge the goods, and also how you can actually load the goods. So from that point of view, we had to do from the maritime structures how we have to design, and also the land side also we had to design. So these are all things that we had to do, and everything is a challenge because in Nigeria, after the Apapa port, there is no port that is developed. So there was no historical data available in Nigeria for anything. So we had to build it everything from scratch, and that took lots of time for us to be able to come to that conclusion that this is the right orientation, this is the right configuration of the port, and this is the right structures that we should have in terms of the entire environmental forces to be taken properly. So it was a challenge in all fronts.
Globally, if you see the major trade routes, if you look at the east-west trading corridors, is between Far East, which is East Asia and China and Hong Kong, Taiwan, those markets in Japan, and the west, which includes the Europe and the American markets. And both these two markets, if you look at the shipping corridors, they go through a very narrow channel. When it comes to the Mediterranean, it is the Suez Canal, and when it comes to the American market, it's the Panama Canal, because these two canals allow the shipping lines to take the shortest possible route, which reduces the cost, increases the time of turning around the cargo delivery, and so on and so forth. So traditionally, that was the reason why a lot of vessel sizes or shipping vessel sizes that we see in the global markets are determined by the biggest vessel that can traverse through the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal. The one that is designed to traverse through the Suez Canal is called Suezmax. That's the biggest size of the vessel that can go through the Suez Canal. And the one that can go through, the biggest size that can go through the Panama Canal is called the Panamax or post-Panamax vessel. So that is the history or the genesis of the nomenclature.
The Lekki port, let's say, greater area or industrial area, was initiated by Toleran at the time. They had a vision to develop like a free zone, economic zone, to facilitate different industries and their factories and production and so on. And what they did, I mean, you can see it growing every year. It's going very well, I believe. And yes, at one point in the past, even before I came, they had one factory, a methanol factory, and they needed a port for the import and export of their products. So that's how the Lekki port came to life. But at one point, somehow the business case didn't really come through, and then they rescoped, redesigned the port into what it is now, focused on container cargo, but also there is space for general cargo in the future, and dry bulk with a flour mill situation. And also there is the opportunity to include some liquid bulk with some jetties along the main breakwater. And yeah, that came to life. And when I came, even then there were some modifications, some tweaks to the master plan of the port. And then as you go forward and the business case is rounded up and you have the finance in place, then at one point you end up with a master plan that everybody's happy with and will work. Because in the end, you can have the most fantastic plans, but it has to work from all aspects, from the land that you have, from the finance that's in place, from your design, your contractor, time-wise, and then the business that is behind it needs to be lined up so that when the port is ready, that your business is going to make money, basically.
So I believe the port ecosystem clearly needs the complementary services which we at Lagos Free Zone provides. And we have warehouses, we have standard factories which operators can use to manufacture and do light manufacturing and ship it out using Lekki port. So that offers a huge advantage. Apart from that, we offer housing to all the people who will be working in the port, in and around the port. Also, we have got commercial office space which can be taken over by operators who are using the Lekki port. So overall, the free zone acts as a huge asset for the port itself to work in cohesion, in sync, and form a great port and a zone ecosystem. And we have to be mindful and be aware that globally, a port and a free zone combination has driven economic transformation in those economies. And we believe that the free zone and the Lekki port combination is a perfect combination which will drive mutual synergies and mutual growth.
One of the key tenets of developing a public-private partnership project of an infrastructure sector which is of this nature is identifying the right allocation of risk with the party that is best capable to handle that risk. So for instance, we as the private sector promoter, as Tolaram, we were able to take the market risk, we were able to take the capital risk, we were able to take the financing risk, but we were not in a position to take the road connectivity risk or the hinterland connectivity risk. And thankfully, when we were in the course of developing this project, it was not very difficult rather to convince our government partners from the public sector in Nigeria to divide the risk allocation in such a way that it has the best chance of getting mitigated. And that's when we agreed with our public sector partners that the development of roads that are required to create an efficient evacuation corridor to avoid the congestion problems that we face at Apapa and Tincan to be repeated with Lekki Port were identified as the responsibility of the public sector. And we had adequate safeguards in the way the concession agreement was drafted that this particular obligation or this particular critical success factor that determines the evacuation rate of cargo from this port is going to be delivered by the government of Nigeria through its different arms, whether it is the Nigerian Ports Authority or the Lagos State Government or the Federal Ministry of Works, will come together to work in a coordinated fashion to deliver what we had clearly identified in terms of the capacity that we require on the road infrastructure to be available right from the start of commercial operations, to be available.
Is that available now?
It is. If you look at what the coastal road which connects the Lekki port with the nearest expressway that opens up the entire hinterland axis has been in construction for getting widened from 1 lane per direction to 3 lanes per direction. And that construction project has been ongoing ever since we reached the financial closure on the port project. And it is in the last few months of it getting completed and commissioned.
Tell me about the badges. Why did you introduce the badges, like badges to help evacuate some of the containers from Lekki ports to other destinations where it's easier for trucks to pick them up?
Well, if you look at the cost of moving container over ocean versus the cost of moving container over road, it will always be cheaper to move containers over the water.
because you can club 100, 400, 500 or 1000 containers depending on the size of the barges together, and it reduces the cost of transport. And in comparison to that, if you are evacuating it by road, you need to evacuate it 1 container per truck. So obviously the cost of moving the containers will be cheaper if you are using barges. But at the same time, the trade-off is barges are only feasible when you are not disaggregating the imported containers at the terminal itself. And if you are not doing that, the trade-off cost is you need to double handle it. You need to handle it once at the Lekki port, then you need to handle it at the ultimate destination of the barges, and then from there it is going to be loaded onto a truck or a trailer to be ultimately delivered to the end user. So barging is not a silver bullet that is sufficient by itself. So we needed a combination of barging as well as road transport corridors, and that is because the existing industrial pockets in Lagos are located in such a way that it is more efficient for them to use a barge to bring the containers to an ICD that is located along the Lagos Lagoon and then receive their container and move it from there over a truck, rather than receiving it at Lekki port and putting it on a truck to transport all the way down there. But that is only applicable to the industrial base that we have in and around the Lagos region. But for everyone else in the north-north or south-south or southeast corridors, it's going to be easier for them to receive their cargo at the terminal and ship it over land using the trucks. And that's why a combination of barges and roads was absolutely important.
So we do have a container freight station planned in our zone, in the logistics corridor as part of our zone, which will take care of the container which are spilling over from the port. So that is designed in a very efficient and in a very, very process-driven way.
So if you look at the landscape of existing ports in Nigeria, these were all port assets that were developed and constructed long time ago, some of them as long ago as 1920s and 1930s. So they are severely constrained in terms of the degree of modernization that is possible because they were not designed to handle modern vessel sizes at the throughputs that we currently see as benchmarks across global ports. So that is the reason why a lot of maritime trade that happens with Nigeria, all the imports and export that come in and out of the gateway ports in Nigeria are notorious in the global markets in terms of the inefficiencies that vessels face when they bring cargo to Nigeria. So there are bottlenecks when the vessels come to Nigeria across all the 3 parameters. One, the first bottleneck is on the ocean side, where the incoming vessels need to get berthed at the anchorage area before they are called by the terminal to get unloaded. The second bottleneck is at the terminal, which is determined by the productivity rates of the equipment that you have to determine how long it will take to load and unload cargo from the vessels. And the third bottleneck is on the land side. Once the container is loaded or unloaded from the incoming vessel, how quickly can you evacuate that to ultimately deliver it to the cargo owner, who might be an importer or an exporter based in the hinterland in Nigeria. So when we started the development journey on Lekki port, the Nigerian ports were constrained on all these 3 fronts, which is what was leading to a situation where the port interface or operations were very inefficient, and ultimately the cost of that inefficiency was borne by the end customer or the end consumer in Nigeria, because the more time that it takes to import and export cargo, the more money you spend, and that money has to be borne by somebody, and that somebody more often than not is the end consumer in Nigeria. So there was a clear business case to develop a greenfield port project, because Nigeria is the largest market when it comes to the population size or the size of the economy in the entire African continent. And the containerization rates of Nigeria, if you look at the number of imported or exported containers as a proportion of the population, was very, very low. And that was because the ports in Nigeria were not geared to handle incoming vessels very efficiently. So that kind of underpinned the business case to develop a new greenfield port project from scratch. And we, as Tolaram, took on that challenge despite not having any clear or direct background in the field of developing infrastructure projects like deep sea port. But we took on that challenge with an open mind, because we, as an importer, as a manufacturer ourselves, were very clear in terms of the cost of inefficiency that we were bearing ourselves. So we knew that there is a real problem that needs solving. So that was the motivation for us to embark upon this project, and we designed this project to address all the bottlenecks that I spoke about.
It is a very unique project. It's a private port. It is a collaboration of public-private partnership. It's a project that has state and federal government involvement. It's a project that has international investors. It's a project that has a Chinese loan facility provider. Putting all the blocks together at the time that this was happening was no mean feat. And also, we found that because it was taking so long, there were changes in government, changes in policy, changes in thinking of what is important for the country's development at that point in time.
COVID setting, we were panicking, anxiety setting. Will this money come? Because governor just announced a lockdown for Lagos, which will happen in a week's time. Then, before then, we thought we had a plan for the Chinese equity of $200 million that will seal the entire deal to come in. So we thought quietly that given the situation we found ourselves, there could be a postponement, which in any case we will accept. But the Chinese shocked us by inflowing that money a week before lockdown of Lagos. Now, when that money came in, the equation changed, because they then conferred significant holdings on the Chinese. Before then, it was more of tolerant. So the equation changed, and they became 51%. So the way we were working stopped, and they had a CEO who was based in Beijing, a CFO based in Beijing, and we couldn't run, our operations were grounded because they just asked you to stop, all approvals, including buying water. And I said, no, we can't allow this to go on.
Yes, the pandemic was obviously a huge challenge for us, and it caught us by surprise, as for everybody, I suppose, and especially in the environment of Nigeria and Lekki. We were facing serious implications of that, and the first to think of is, of course, the people. You have to take care of the people, and for a very short period, maybe a couple of weeks, the work was shut down because of that. But then after that, we recaptured ourselves. We made the plans of how we could progress, what activities to progress, and taking care of the health of the people on working on the project. And also we had difficulties with the supply of materials. A lot of the raw materials were coming from inside Nigeria, from the quarries and the cement and all of that. So we had to overcome all kinds of restrictions of movement of people and cargo. But once you're on it, I mean, we had a target for the project to complete the project in time, and you'll find your ways. You'll become creative, as in an environment of Nigeria. You have to be creative. So we overcame that.
To China. We studied a lot of other options for us to look for the proper contractor who could develop the port. We put up a tender into the international market and we found that China was the most cost effective and they were willing, the important part was they were willing to listen to us, because when you talk about we want to build a port to Nigeria, 90% of the people doesn't believe you. But this Chinese group checked. Somehow they have a confidence because we were very sincere to them. We explained the whole thing, the problem, the difficulties. But they lived with that and they say, we will support you.
为了减少新冠疫情对尼日利亚的影响，尼日利亚联邦政府宣布将于2020年3月至10月关闭国际机场，并实施入境限制。我们面临的巨大挑战，为了确保施工顺利进行，我们于2020年9月上旬组织59名技术员的包机前往尼日利亚。当时我们是2020年3月以来第一家复工的中国企业。同时，在采取全面防疫措施的前提下，我们于2020年10月开始增加夜间施工，增加当地员工的雇用，不断优化施工顺序。2020年11月，我们优化了原材料采购渠道，加大本地供应比例，及时在现场储备石材、水泥等材料，应对供应中断风险。一系列举措成功抵消了疫情对项目进度的影响，最终莱基港于2022年10月竣工，并于2023年4月开始商业运营。
好啊，这轮背。尼日利亚是非洲第一人口大国，也是非洲第一大经济体，经济发展迅速，外贸进出口快速增长，市场潜力巨大。中国和尼日利亚是战略伙伴关系，尼日利亚也是中国在非洲紧随南非的第二大贸易伙伴，这是中国港湾选择在尼日利亚投资港口的重要原因。莱基港坐落于尼日利亚制造业和物流业的重要投资目的地拉各斯自贸区内，毗邻西非地区规模最大的自贸区之一莱基自贸区，区位优势明显，市场潜力巨大。此外，港区西侧的丹戈特炼油厂是世界上最大的单体炼油厂，航运市场前景广阔。高水平的港元联动发展将直接辐射尼日利亚2亿人口，并可间接辐射整个西非地区。我们还拥有一批优质的合作伙伴，如拉各斯政府、莱基港务局、法国达菲、新加坡 Tolorem 等，基于中国港湾自身强大的资本运营能力和港口全产业链服务能力，通过整合优势资源，我们最大程度地重塑了投资可行性和项目的可融资性，最终促成了莱基港的整体成功开发。我们相信，作为促进中尼友好合作深化和拓展的基点，莱基港可以成为高质量共建“一带一路”上的示范项目。作为西非地区最大的深水港之一，我们致力于将莱基港打造成为尼日利亚的门户港和西非区域枢纽港，持续增强尼日利亚与西非及世界港口的联通。秉承合作共赢的发展理念，我们将积极推动临港产业园和城市综合开发，持续推进港城融合、产城融合，形成前港、中区、后城的良性发展格局。根据尼日利亚官方测算，莱基港在45年特许经营期间，将累计拉动约3610亿美元的 GDP 增长 创造约17万个就业岗位，创造直接、间接商业收入约1580亿美元，极大促进当地工商业、服务业和贸易发展。作为中尼共建“一带一路”倡议的具体成果，莱基港的投建营开发聚合了5方4国的优势资源，打造了多国合作的典范，对未来在非洲进一步推动共建“一带一路”具有重要意义。随着莱基港的开港运营，尼日利亚乃至西非的海运和贸易物流将发生根本性变化，有力促进尼日利亚与中国以及“一带一路”共建国家的海上互联互通，打造助力尼日利亚经济发展的新引擎。可以吗？啊
Call on the government. Say, look, we need to bring in the Chinese, whose monies are just coming, for them to take ownership. Because for us to do anything, we have to go to Beijing. And ask the Chinese, are you willing to come, despite the fact that our airspace is closed, this is going, you want to stay and watch your money? They say, yes, certainly, if you can arrange for us, we'll come. So we started going through all the airlines, from Emirates to Ethiopia to Qatar, to eventually we settled for Kenya Airlines. And then consulted Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, EMA, consulted the Minister of Aviation through the governor of Lagos State. We are all working through thick and thin. But look, this must. These people have done their bit. We must also encourage them. And since they were willing to come, and then we know that pockets of, cargoes were coming in. And since the Chinese were ready to come in, we arranged. And we got all the approval, we cleared all the hurdles. But each of them, including the CEO, including the CFO, including all the top engineers, came up with about 80 of them brought into the country during COVID. Got the handicap. We addressed them. Are you willing, if all the safety things, since everything you require, all the materials are on site, are you willing? Oh, they said they weren't. And that was how the project got consummated, within time schedule that you have agreed.
And the good thing of the contract we had with China Harbor, the contractor, it was an EPC contract, so engineering, procurement, and construction. So that the design and the procurement and the construction was in one hand, China Harbor, and that gave us a huge advantage to accelerate where necessary. And in that way also you're flexible to change change the way of work, to adapt to the design or overcome local difficulties. And if you need quickly to redesign certain aspects, then it can be done. Whereas if you have a fixed detailed design and from one party and then you go to the contractor, that's much more time consuming. So it was good for us that we had that setup of a contract, and a large part of the staff from the client side, from the consultant, was also on site, including the China Harbor management team. So whenever needed, we could sit together, dig in and assess the situation and find a way forward. That was very, very helpful to deliver the project on time, to keep the project on target.
The efforts which Czech did for the success of Lekki Port, I think there are several roles which Czech play. So for instance, the Czech is majority shareholder of Lekki Port. They secure the adequate funding support for Lekki Port development. This is the most important thing. During the capital expenditure period, the Lekki Port is a big project, big infrastructure project. So it require stable and significant funding support in this period. And with Czech's, equity contribution and the debt raising capability, we call it is just like the blood.
对于尼日利亚来说，莱基港是第一个现代化的深水港。那么我们引进了来自上海振华重工的最先进的岸桥和厂桥技术，那么它能够大大加快尼日利亚港口尼日利亚莱基港的这个货物吞吐能力和装卸效率。
The combination of tolerance and Czech held interest for us. First, if you look at the top 100 ports of the world, top 10, 7 of them are Chinese. The 3 that are not Chinese, Dubai port, Singapore port, as well as Korean port. Even though China was a contractor, or is a contractor, but we have to interest them. Look, take 15. And China said, look, 15 is not enough for me. I like the project, but go and give me more shares that will make me a majority shareholder. Then I can bring you it back. And that's exactly what. So the owner of the majority stake then was tolerant. So we had to prevail on tolerance. Moral persuasion, but look, we've sat on this project for long. Chinese are ready to bring in just one bank. We had 6, 7 banks that not disbursed because they were all jolted when MP exited. And that created a lot of problem for me. I mean, that was the turning point for me. Having supported up to that stage. And the MP said, forget it. I don't have the 20% to pay. 5% were paid, that is it. Go look for. So, of course, naturally, if the government is not supporting it, that was the initial template, banks left. So we had to start all over again.
Lekki Port has been an idea on the table for probably over a decade. When we resumed here in 2016, we met Lekki as still an idea that, everyone was trying to, get going. We met a situation where MPA was supposed to contribute a certain amount of money. And we decided, it's best we allow the private sector to take more equity. And that was reduced down to 5%. And then we visited the location. As at 7 years ago, 6 years ago, it was just a sandfield area with a few 8 blocks, with an office in the porter cabin, and the financing was not concluded. Of course, we know the Tolerant Group, Lagos State Government, and so on and so forth were all partners or interested parties in the business. The then Minister of Transportation and the then federal government, the president, actually made it like a mandate for Nigerian Ports Authority to do whatever it could to ensure that that port starts, the construction begins. And the federal government, through Nigerian Ports Authority, gave all the necessary support.
For us to put this seaport together, it has to be a formidable team.
Lekki Port team is a very, diverse team.
他们来自美国、英国、加拿大、法国、新加坡、日本、印度、荷兰等多个国家。那我们也经常把这个项目的团队称作是一个诺亚方舟。在整个全球经济局势因为疫情而进入衰退的情况下，那我们这么多个国家的伙伴们一起聚在一起，完成了这个项目。
I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Lekki Port. I've been in Nigeria for 10 years. I started my career in China Harbour Engineering Company. So I joined Lekki Port in 2020, March.
Around 95% of the staff came from Nigeria, from the senior staff and workforce even.
It's very nice to work in an environment that has people with different cultures. We have Chinese staff, we have British staff, we have Indian staff, Nigerian staff. We've even had somebody from the Netherlands. So, coming together, everybody with their different culture, different languages, is very nice. And we even share things with each other as well. Sometimes we joke and say, oh, how do you say this thing in your own language? It's quite nice. Lekki Port is a game changer. Lekki Port is a project that has certainly changed the trajectory of doing business in Nigeria.
I'm part of Lekki Port team, and I think I will stay in Nigeria for some period, for some long time. And within my team, I have some training plans. We will, based on our team members' ability, to give some internal training, to do some internal lecture, so that our team member can learn from each other. And also from my perspective, I have sharing all my knowledge to my team member. On the other hand, we have outsourcing for the trainings. We have some plans that we ask each of our individual of our team member for their training needs, and so that we can organize properly to meet their requirements.
尼日利亚港口行业的发展，像是在中国港口行业刚起步的时候差不太多，因为在莱基港这个区域，它是拥有一些得天独厚的条件的，比如说莱基港周围有很多的这种土地可以供港口使用，而且尼日利亚处在整个西非区的一个比较中心的位置，可以做到通过中转覆盖到西非大多数的国家。那就像在中国一样，中国有一些港口它也是可以做到这个中转服务的，并且中国的大部分港口都是有比较多的吞吐量，因此我们更想要把中国的一个港口发展模式复制到莱基港范围内，把莱基港整个的一个发展，逐步的推到一个国际的前列，我们把莱基港的发展逐步的推到西非的前沿，让莱基港发展成为一个西非主要的深水港。
Apart from the individual benefits, the local community, the surrounding environment, they actually benefited a lot. A lot of business are presently booming as I talk, the hospitality business. Even the guys from the local community, they are ready to rent out their apartment because they want to make a lot of money. A lot of people are coming in, there's business, people are traveling all over the world to come and do business in Lekki Port. Again, one of the lovely part that I love most is the fact that there is a massive job creation. Based on the survey we conducted some time back, Lekki Port will actually be generating directly or indirectly, we are generating up to 200,000 job creation in Lekki Port. For me, that is a lot for us in Nigeria. Then as a Nigerian, yes, most of these things we are taught in the school, but most of us, we don't actually see this thing in reality. Now for me, we are doing this construction, we are seeing how it is being done, and then we are acquiring knowledge.
Yes, I can say it boldly. Lekki Port, as at now, Lekki Port there are a lot of benefits, àǹfààní lóríṣiríṣi látìgbà tí Lekki Port tí wọ́n ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ construction. There are a lot of opportunities tó ti wá fún àwọn èèyàn ní community. Even though kì í ṣe community nìkan gan ló ń jẹ àǹfààní tí Lekki Port bí lẹ́yìn báyìí. Ó kárí in the world, ó kárí àgbáyé. Àkàìmọye àwọn iṣẹ́ tó wà nínú Lekki Port tó jáde síta tó lọ rere ní àgbáyé. There are a lot of opportunities tó wá fún wọn. Most especially àwọn community tó wà nearby, tó wà ní under Lekki Port, as in 6 stakeholder community under Lekki Port. 3 on the right, 3 on the left. A lot of opportunity ni wọ́n rí lórí ẹ̀. Most àwọn tó ń ṣiṣẹ́ lọ́fíìsì, at least I can say it boldly, a ní a lot of community nínú terminal ìbáyìí tó ń jẹ́ ọ̀gá operator crane tó ń ṣiṣẹ́ pẹ̀lú ìbáyìí tí wọ́n kọ́ wọn níṣẹ́ níbi ìbáyìí tí wọ́n fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ ṣe fúnra wọn.
The multicultural environment of the project, that was also a very nice aspect of the project. yeah, you could say it was a difficult one, but it's also, for me personally, it's also an interesting one, to get to know the people, to reach out, and to address the needs and what people want out of it, because that's important. Everybody needs to be motivated, and that's from inside the technical project, but it's outside from the community. Everybody has their own reality, as you can say, and as long as you address and deal with that in a fair and reasonable way, sometimes also strict. I mean, you have to put the boundaries, keeping in mind the path of the project where you have to go. Then you'll find a way to make that work. Yes.
One of the critical success factor for Lekki Port, which is situated in Lagos Free Zone, is the excellent relationship that we have enjoyed with the host communities. We have tried to reciprocate in terms of employment for the youths, interventions, initiatives for the women, for the fishermen, because we know that their livelihood has been impacted since the development of the channel for the port and all of that. The truth of the matter is that nothing can be too much or enough, to do for the host communities, so that their lives are better, because of this great sacrifice that they have made for Nigeria in terms of their land.
In the time of construction, there are a lot of opportunity for the community to learn the skill about the wedding, fún iṣẹ́ kíkọ́, fún wedding, àwọn tó máa ń wed, àti àwọn tó ń kọ́ kíní nígbà tó ń ṣe construction. At least wọ́n máa fún wọn ní certificate. Ìgbà tó bá ṣiṣẹ́ yẹn tán, wọ́n fún wọn ní a lot of certificate tó máa fi tó yẹ pé wọ́n lè ṣiṣẹ́ even though gan kì í ṣe ní Lekki Port nìkan wọ́n lè fi ṣiṣẹ́, wọ́n lè fi ṣiṣẹ́ gan níta, wọ́n lè fi ṣiṣẹ́ níta. A lot of there is tangible result, certificate tí wọ́n fún wọn, wọ́n lè fi ṣiṣẹ́ anywhere in the world. Yes.
This is a very, very tough terrain, to do business, because you are confronted by almost about 4 issues, which I will summarize. The first one is political. The second one is technical. The third is environmental. And the fourth is financials. So each of those 4, they are always at play at different stages. So if it's political today, you solve it, it could be environmental tomorrow.
It takes maybe 4 or 5 days by road to get to somewhere like Kanu. The rail could reduce that to 24 hours. There is a lot of agricultural goods that can be exported in Nigeria. We need to expand out, talk to these people about how we can support them, have corridors from the north, refrigerated corridors for the produce that's produced in the north. I always talk about the tomato crop, and I understand that something like 60 to 70% of the tomato crop is perished because it can't get to the market in time. If we talk about barges going to Onitsha, into Calabar, and back again, it's not about just the imports going there, it's about taking the exports back. I believe that the Calabar region is big on cocoa. There's a season for it, but let's try and get that into the marketplace as soon as possible. We need to really encourage these farmers and market people to embrace and celebrate Lekki Port and what it can bring to them.
I'll say my advice is that we have to increase the CSR corporate social responsibility to the community, the host communities, and as much as possible that we train most of these youths, because we have displaced them from their farming and fishing now.
Chief Wahidi Okolam, the value of Idotu community. So the seaport, they try for us, and they come here. For example, the time they won't carry our land, we're not happy for it. That time. But after they day here, as the community trying to take the land, we're happy for it. And the time that they do raging, they try for us, for the community. All the house where the ocean carry up, they pay the money. All the background, where they come out, they pay for it. All the coconut, where they for it, where all that don't come out, they pay for it. So they try very well.
They are now feeling the impact of this sport. But what is very important for us is to make sure that we train as much as possible youth in technical skill acquisition.
Now that the port is operational and the free trade zone is also developing more, I'm sure that more is going to be done to meet the yearnings and aspirations of the leaders of the communities, of the youth in the communities, and of the children. The goal is to ensure that as the port becomes more profitable, that profit is, is enjoyed by all stakeholders, especially the host communities. They have to see a difference in their lives based on what they have sacrificed for Nigeria.
So, for example, the operator of the STS, in Nigeria before, there's no experienced operators here. So we have to employ the Nigeria operators and then train them like this. And also like the other equipment like RTG and trailer and some other instrument like scanner and OSH, we also have to train them.
The greatest asset any company has is its human capital, and we look to promote that. What we want to do eventually is, for want of a better phrase, is replace me with Nigerians. It's their country. They should be the ones that are running these ports, not expats. Expats are, there's a cost associated to us. Tolerum, for example, they run a science project for the secondary schools around the community, and some of the inventions that these young Nigerian kids have done are incredible things. I think the winner was you talked to this machine and it supplied you with clean water, and some of the other projects that were there were fabulous.
So as an ambassador for a host community that is hosting such a gigantic project, what I will be looking at in their favor is long-term projects that can significantly impact the community in the areas of health, in the areas of education, in the areas of social well-being, and of course employment, more and more employment, making sure that the youth go to school so that they have a ready source of employment based on the fact that they are fully qualified to do what the port and the other entities in the zone require of them.
Nigeria, over the next 10, 15, 20 years, has a great opportunity to grab hold of these young people and to drive them into being the next COOs of Lekki Port, the next COO for the Tolerum Group. And we should encourage that. We just need that motivation and the courage from each of us to promote that.
The host communities surrounding the port have been exceptional. They have been extremely cooperative, extremely protective, and honestly, one of the key reasons why the port was able to be constructed in such a short period of time is because of the cooperation that we enjoy from the host communities. Lagos State, being part of Lekki Port and being the government of Lagos, handled the issues of the host communities. So there wasn't a direct agreement between Lekki Port and the host communities that says you will do this, you will do that. Lagos State gave the land and was then responsible for relocating them from the land. Be that as it may, Lekki Port has done interventions as necessary. Buildings, healthcare, social interventions, the science challenge, where the children in the community are given STEM experience and all of that.
Welcome to Lekki Deep Sea Port, Ibeju Lekki, Lagos, Nigeria. The newest and most advanced port in Nigeria, which is ready for your business. Here, technology and efficiency are our twin compass, guiding us towards a brighter future where Nigeria regains its preeminence as a maritime hub of Africa. Lekki Port has 3 types of terminals: the container terminal, the liquid terminal, and the dry bulk terminal. The container terminal has an impressive initial draft of 16.5 meters with the potential for further dredging to 19.5 meters. This terminal is a juggernaut with the capacity to handle 1.2 million 20-foot standard containers annually. But what truly sets us apart is our technological prowess. Lekki Port is Nigeria's first port equipped with ship-to-shore cranes. We possess 5 of these remarkable container gantry cranes belonging to the Super Post Panamax Group. These STS cranes are formidable, capable of lifting 65 tons in twin lift mode, 50 tons in single lift mode, or a staggering 85 tons under a hook. With a 61-meter outreach from the quayside, they can handle containers from 25 rows deep, even accommodating the world's largest container ship, like the Ever Alert, with its 61.5-meter width. We've harnessed technology to its fullest, with an air draft of 52 meters and each STS crane generating 300 lux of light. Even the darkest nights are illuminated. Cameras assist our operators, ensuring precision at every turn. Celebrating advanced infrastructure, our container terminal also features 15 state-of-the-art 16-wheel RTG cranes capable of lifting 65 tons, efficiently stacking containers 1/6, each 7 containers wide. We proudly operate 2 FS6000 scanners for precise cargo management. Furthermore, our cargo clearance VBS auto gate, equipped with optical character recognition portals and biometric kiosks, optimizes inbound and outbound truck logistics with utmost professionalism. But that's not all. Our port's computerized and fully automated system revolutionizes container identification, scanning, and clearance, minimizing the need for extensive human interaction in physical operations. Now, let's delve deeper into the heartbeat of Lekki Port. It's more than just a harbor. It's an economic powerhouse that will strengthen Nigeria's economy in ways unimaginable. Over the course of the concession, it's projected to generate a staggering $361 billion. But numbers alone can't capture the transformation. Lekki Port isn't just about figures. It's about people. It's about creating 170,000 new jobs, reaching out to the host communities and lifting families out of poverty. With $20 billion in employee salaries, prosperity cascades through our nation. Families smile brighter, communities will thrive, and lives will be transformed. But Lekki Port doesn't stop there. It will contribute over $201 billion in revenue to federal and state agencies. That means better infrastructure, healthcare, and education for all. It will be a driving force behind manufacturing, trade, export, and recharging the commercial service sector. Lekki Port's impact will resonate across industries, creating opportunities beyond measure. This project is more than an investment. It's a multiplier effect of more than 230 times its total costs, a testament to Nigeria's growth potential. Built on over 90 hectares of land in the Lagos Free Zone, Lekki Port stands as Nigeria's deepest seaport, capable of berthing the world's largest ships. It's a symbol of Nigeria's determination to step into greatness and a testament to what public-private partnership can do in the infrastructure space. Lekki Port is not merely a port. It's a lifeline that binds nations and kindles aspirations. Through an intricate web of road and water networks, the cargo that graces our shores finds its way to the heart of Nigeria and beyond through barges and trucks. It's the heartbeat of commerce, reducing time, costs, and distances. Containers that arrive at Lekki Port carry the promise of prosperity, not just for Nigeria, but for all our neighbors. Reaching deep into the lands of West Africa, Lekki Port enables transshipment all over West Africa, straight from the quayside. With every shipment, we fuel growth, elevate trade, and enhance the quality of life for millions. It's more than trade. It's the rhythm of progress echoing across borders. China Harbour Engineering Limited, with its strength in construction, joined with Toleram with its strategic business experience in Nigeria, and teamed up with Lagos State Government and Nigerian Ports Authority to provide state-of-the-art maritime infrastructure. Lekki Port, gateway to the nation.